Hello, everyone, and welcome to the studios here at Culpeper Media Network. My name is Jonathan Krawczyk, station manager, and we are in for a treat today. There has been a lot of talk locally about suicide prevention, which is a very good thing. It is something that has been in the dark for a very long time, and there are many organizations, both local and national, who are working to bring it out of the darkness. And speaking of that, joining us today is Ryan Newcomb. Ryan, you are the regional director of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, correct?
That's right.
First off, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
So before we get started, we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
First off, if you don't mind, I'm going to say the long word one more time, and then we'll go to the acronym.
Yeah.
The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Talk to us a little bit about that organization, how it came to be, and what's its scope and mission.
Sure. Well, AFSP is the organization that is behind the Out of the Darkness walks, right? And all that we're trying to do locally. And with our partner organizations, there's some tremendous coalition organizations that are working towards different goals in the mental health and suicide prevention area. And we're proud to stand with them in the really great work that they're doing. But AFSP was founded about 30 years ago in order to be basically a private research arm to figure out why suicide was happening in the United States with some wealthy donors and whatnot. About 11 or 12 years ago, we started to have walks across the country. We started to build chapters and a presence across the country. And today we're one of the largest growing nonprofits in the United States. We have a local presence in Virginia with the local Virginia Board of Directors and volunteers and board members across the state of Virginia. And with that, we have a new event happening in Culpeper County this year with our walk chair, Aisa, who is going to be leading this tremendous effort in September. And so basically what we do today is we have 5 pillars that are a part of who we are as a foundation and organization as we work to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. And this is an area of the state that has had a large amount of suicide and has been impacted heavily. And so it's very important to us that we're out here working with those other organizations to raise the vital research dollars on a national level and the public policy dollars, as well as bringing education and awareness programs back to the community in the coming months and years in order to bring our mission forward.
Now, you really make a very good point. I think it's a tribute to the success of the organization. As you work nationally, you also, as you mentioned, have local boards and organizations that work with the communities that you're involved with, which really helps trickle back up to understand crafting policy and getting lawmakers and the attention nationwide and giving, suicide prevention the discussion it deserves. And, as you mentioned, the Out of the Darkness Walk coming up September 18th, very good name. And I kind of want to go back to what you were saying, working with local organizations and in Culpeper and surrounding areas, it has been a problem. And I guess a question to you, with the extent of working with AFSP, is it seems lately, and it's a good thing, that the talk has become more prevalent and it has become more of a discussion topic. To what do you attribute that?
Well, first I would say that for us it's not a problem. We love working with other organizations, and I think we have, our walk chair and others have engaged, and we have indicated a willingness to say, make sure we're not doing events on the same date and that we are supporting one another in the effort, because we're all doing a bit different of things. And so when you bring those things together, we're one movement, and we don't ever want to be seen as anything else. So that being said, suicide is a public health issue. When someone is suicidal or experiencing thoughts of suicide, mental illness, depression, anxiety, that is an illness of the brain. And so you, just like if you have a heart attack, or if you have an illness in your stomach or your intestinal tract, or if you're having diabetes problems, you would not refuse treatment. You would not take your insulin as a diabetic. In the same way, if someone were having a heart attack, we wouldn't tell them in the middle of a heart attack that they need to work on their eating habits or to start running, or and it's ludicrous sounding because we haven't addressed our brain and mental illness in the same way as we would any other physiological health issue, which this is. And so it's become more prevalent for many reasons. We've reached a tipping point with news and media events, and there is an incorrect narrative involving a lot of the violence we see in the country and otherwise, that a lot of the people are mentally ill. And that's not necessarily the case that commit these crimes. Statistics really prove that that people who are mentally ill are actually more likely to be a victim of violent crime than to commit a violent crime. So there's a couple of things of stigmas we have to break there. But you know, when Robin Williams died 2 years ago, just a few days ago, 2 years back, I feel personally that was a pivotal moment of tipping point for us. And we feel nationally that we're at a tipping point locally in what we're seeing in the grassroots. That people are talking about this. There's an overlap with opiate use, which we've seen locally too. And we hope to bring all those things together to fund research like Susan G. Komen, like all these other, like the breast cancer organizations, like the HIV/AIDS groups have done, in order to take those things to the prominent level that they've been brought, and where 20 years ago it seemed like nothing could be done about them.
Very good point.
So we hope now to look back in 20 years and say this is where we hit the tipping point with mental health and suicide prevention, and that those were stigmatized issues, things people didn't want to talk about, breast cancer and HIV. Today, we know what to do in those situations. We know what prevention is there. We know what to do when we're looking to look for breast cancer and mammograms, and the right things to do in those situations. And in the same way, we have to create a culture that is smart about mental health, as we have about other public health issues.
Well, your last point is really what I want to dwell on when it comes to the Out of the Darkness Walk coming up September 18th. That is exactly what we're looking to do, is educate and make sure that people are aware of what's going on. Just a little while ago, just a few moments ago, you were talking about warning signs, or you don't ignore them. And as you were talking about, when one goes to the walk, the Out of the Darkness Walk on September 18th, obviously there's going to be some education involved, and rightly so. But very quickly, if you could touch on some of those topics, what are some warning signs that somebody should look out for?
Well, and they can go to afsp.org or outofthedarkness.org to find out more. There are things to do to find out on our website what to do when your loved one is struggling. If you're struggling, they can call 1-800-273-TALK. That is the suicide prevention lifeline nationwide. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's there if you're concerned about someone. It's there if you need someone to talk to. It's there if there's an immediate crisis. So it runs the gamut. But really, the walk exists to bring mental illness and these what are taboo topics like suicide and suicide prevention out of the darkness and into the light. And so that is why that name resonates so much, because it has not been talked about until recently and now. And it also is a metaphor for people struggling, for those who have mental struggles like anxiety and depression, which are treatable, which have scientific proof that can be turned around, that wellness can be achieved with the right medicine and therapy and help. But to get back to your question, suicidal thoughts can come in many types and ways and forms. And someone struggling is not necessarily going to say something. So what we have to do is be the voice and talk to those in our communities, and know that talk can save lives. And that's one of our taglines, that talk saves lives. And that is to ask people, if you see mood changes, if you see sudden erratic behaviors, if you see changes in sleeping or appetite or diet, things that change very quickly, or cause you to have concern, there's a good reason that you do have that concern, and it's a reason to act. And you should assume you're the only person that's going to reach out.
Because that's a very good point you make.
Yeah, I mean, you never know if you're the only person observing this. And heck, if you ask someone if they're struggling or suicidal, the worst answer you can get is no, and they know that they have someone that loves and cares about them enough to ask. And so for us, it's really important to get the dialogue going, to get the conversation started, and for people to not be ashamed. Because if this is people aren't ashamed when they have diabetes or have other conditions. They address them, and they learn to live with them in the best way that they can. And in the same way, we need to let people know there's hope and help available when they're struggling. And so there can be a lot of different things happening in someone's life. A lot of stressors, environmental factors can come together. Life stressors is what we call them, to create a storm. And then there can be a catalyst that can cause someone to be suicidal or to attempt suicide. Our goal, is to make sure that those who do attempt, go on to get help and treatment and full recovery. And we know that it's happening in the United States, and we know that we're saving lives, because while 40,000 people die annually by suicide, 1 million people attempt. So there's a lot of people who are going on, despite their attempt, to live better, to live in recovery, to live in wellness, to figure out ways to get their life back on track and their mental health back on track. And it's not always easy. It can be a constant battle. It can be a constant struggle. But there are tremendous therapies, tremendous medications, tremendous things for wellness, like dietary changes and going to the gym and being physically fit, that can really help to change the focus and in someone's life from a point of struggle to a place of wellness, or seeing a light on the horizon at least.
Indeed, out of the darkness and into the light.
Yeah.
And so there are, as you mentioned, there are a lot of factors. And again, you mentioned the website. I want to point people in that direction, afsp.org, or specifically for the walk, outofthedarkness.org. And you make a really good point when you're talking about the mood changes and something. But it's important that, when you see somebody day in, day out, and there is that radical change in some way or another, that's when the dialogue has to begin.
Right.
It's really the first step.
Right, and I think one of the things that is kind of an old tale, if you will, or an old myth, is that if you ask someone about being suicidal, that you're going to plant the idea in their head, and that is just so far from reality. Rather, someone with a healthy mind, someone with a healthy mental wellness, they are not going to be having thoughts of suicide, period. And if you were to ask them that and they're healthy, it's not going to make a difference one way or the other. They'll just know they have someone who's reaching out that's concerned. When you reach out to someone who is having those thoughts, it's a huge opportunity for them. It can be, it can be like a big hug. It can be a big opportunity for them to finally release and talk about what they're struggling with, and a huge opportunity to get them help. Take them to 911, call 911, take them to the ER, get them to that help if they are suicidal. Our emergency rooms are well equipped today. The crisis line is well equipped to help get crisis teams on the ground in order to get responded out to people to do a wellness and safety check from the police department or otherwise. And so it's really important that we do those conversations, and we make sure that people know what the direct resources are for when people are in crisis. And
you make a good point, the emergency rooms, the police, because of the attention and the talk that has been garnered in the community, that is, when that situation arises, unfortunately, it will eventually, this community has become more equipped because of the dialogue, the talk that has been happening lately. So I kind of want to shift to the walk itself on September 18th. We've gotten some great information from you today. So for the walk coming up, the Out of Darkness Walk, September 18th, what can one expect?
Well, first I want people to know what when they register, whether they're going to fundraise or not, that people come out to support loved ones, to support themselves, to walk for their previous attempts. It's very powerful. But they come also to remember loved ones they've lost to suicide. And so it's this tremendous community that we're pulling together there. But I think that they can expect a memorial activity. They can expect some hope and some music, and they can expect a program where we'll have a mental health professional and local AFSP representatives on site. I think they can expect to get out there and walk for the cause, and probably about a 5K, 3 miles, and to do that with their fellow community members and to connect with those people. We'll have community resources, we'll have arts and crafts opportunities, we'll have different therapy opportunities on site or resources. And so it's just kind of an opportunity to come together and be the voice, as we say as well, for those that may not have a voice anymore on this topic because they did lose their life to depression, mental illness, and suicide, or to be the voice for your loved ones that struggle. I've suffered from anxiety and mental illness my whole life. So I have anxiety and depression. I've had panic attacks in the past. And I live well because of the work of the foundation and what we're doing and what it's taught me, and being a part of this greater community and family of people, as we like to say. And I think so many of those involved in our work have struggled themselves, have had losses of loved ones, have seen their loved ones struggle as I have. And, you know, together, we all come together to create this powerful movement and voice. And in the end, what we're doing is we are raising awareness, we are creating a community dialogue, and we are funding the largest private amount of dollars going to suicide prevention research in the nation, which is what AFSP is doing. And so in order to do what Komen and the HIV/AIDS groups have done, and all the other major public health groups with cancer and heart disease, we have to fund research at a level that they have. And we have to get our public policy, our lawmakers, people who are changing laws to get the dollars turned to this at the national and local level as well. And so I'm so glad that we have AFSP board members, volunteers locally. I'm glad that we have the Virginia chapter to represent our local needs. And so they're also going to be supporting bringing back local funding for assist and safe talk trainings, youth mental health and mental health first aid, and then other programs that AFSP does, like More Than Sad for teen depression, and then funding those national initiatives that we can only do from the grassroots. One of the things we're really proud of as an organization is that our admin costs are really low. So over 80% of our fundraising dollars go to programming and education and awareness and research dollars. So
that is exactly what I was going to ask you next, and thank you for doing that. And so it's important that we raise these funds and have this conversation. And one of the things we want to talk about with the September 18th walk is that, you know, as you mentioned, working with local organizations. I know you've been partnering and working with our local organizations, and I think it's great because a lot of the things that you've talked about here today, we have had, you know, on the air. We've had discussions with Live Well. We've spoken with Al Rasmussen, and you know, we've done work with the Rusty Bowers Foundation, the Scott Fisher Foundation, and a lot of these local organizations you're working with to bring, I guess, their local work to a national stage.
Right, and to be frank, our walk chair has been really tremendous in reaching out to them and engaging with them, and we've heard tremendous things of what they're doing, and those are new relationships that we hope to keep going forward. But yes, absolutely, and I hope that we can come in and supplement funding for the work that they're doing as well, and that we can sit together at one big table in Culpeper County and beyond and say, what can we do to fund a coalition effort in the greater community. And we have those efforts funded across the state, where we sit down in greater Augusta County, in the Richmond metropolitan area, and in other areas where we have entire teams of different foundations, groups with parallel missions that are working on different things, but have some small areas of overlap and a big picture overlap. And so with that, we hope to be a part of the bigger conversation and to help supplement smaller organizations that don't have the national infrastructure that we do, to help them locally as well. And that's our full intention, and we do it across the state, we do it across the Mid-Atlantic, and we do it across the nation. So.
And two words that we've spoken about today that I really want to reiterate, because we've said them over and over, is talking together.
Yeah.
And we're doing that today.
Yeah.
And that is really what this is all about. So the walk coming up September 18th, we talked about the website outofthedarkness.org, and of course the national site, the afsp.org. You can go there, you can register for the walk, you can donate, get all the information, and as we were talking about earlier, you can also find more information regarding warning signs and just a massive amount of education.
Absolutely, and we have, if you have a loved one who's struggling, if you have a loved one that is attempted, we have amazing resources for family support after an attempt, which really doesn't exist until recently, and so we're so happy that we have that now. We have building a safety plan for yourself after an attempt, so that you can continue to live well, and you have a structure that you build into your life, so that if you're worried that it's going to happen again, that you would know where to turn and where to go. And so I would encourage people to go to afsp.org to learn more about the foundation, to learn more about our 4-star Charity Navigator rating, which is very important to us, and those numbers I talked about, because we are tremendously transparent in all that we do. And we are working aggressively, even though we've only been chartered as a Virginia chapter for a year and a half, and we've already trained thousands of people this year across the state in suicide prevention trainings. And that's so we hope to continue to grow to where that's tens of thousands of people in a few years.
Well, again, it all starts with talking and bringing what was once in the dark into the light.
That's right.
And that's how we do that.
Thanks so much.
Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a wonderful discussion, you really have shed some light on a topic that has been in the dark for a number of years, and we're really looking forward to the walk on September 18th.
Thanks. We're looking forward to having people.
It's going to be a great time. All right, folks, don't forget, if you want to log on for more information, as we talked about with Ryan just a moment ago, afsp.org is a treasure trove of resources for suicide prevention and education and prevention. If you're looking for more information regarding the walk, please log on to outofthedarkness.org. We've tackled a lot of information today and really have been having that dialogue, that discussion, to bring what was in the dark into the light. If you need help immediately, the national helpline is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK. And talking is what is necessary to help defeat suicide, to help stop suicide, prevent suicide, and you can help just by talking. Well, we look forward to seeing you, Yowell Park, September 18th for the Out of the Darkness Walk. Don't forget to log on and come walk, support, and have a great time with us. Until we see you at Yowell Park, September 18th, you have yourselves a great day, and of course, a better tomorrow.